This week on Coffee Break with the Boys.
We're back and ready to break down all of that knowledge. Ready for you.
Hand off. Love it.
Well, here we are. Once
Here we
again.
are. Welcome.
Little coffee break after another amazing episode.
No, it's so cool what they're doing and so needed. I mean, at the start, I kind of came in with a lot of questions of like, how is it such a highly traded commodity and we haven't done any of this research? And then there was kind of like the statement of like, yeah, well, corn has been, farmed for
Only a few tens of years.
thousands of years, whereas this is only in the last like kind of 400, and it's kind of an ever-growing world. We talked about the different expanding markets, like especially China and that kind of stuff. But also cool that we can kind of leverage off some of the research that was done for other commodities or for other agricultural commodities that we can now apply to this to kind of speed up that process. And what were they saying? They can like take a little like prick from a leaf and know if it's going to have those genetic attributes that'll fight like rust and that
like
kind of stuff.
Rapid sequencing, I guess, to see if something's active. And so we are talking, of course, here about the episode that we just filmed with Hannah Neuschwander from World Coffee Research.
I know, I always feel like we need to prerequisite that, but I'm like, if you're someone that's just tuning into a coffee break by itself and not listening to the other episodes, then,
the short, sweet snapshot.
Oh,
here.
yeah, there
They're
you
just
go.
like, I want our debrief.
Exactly.
Want the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. I mean, I was very excited. I've kind of been following World Coffee Research for many years, but it's so cool to hear exactly what they're getting up to under the hood. And I mean, I just am continually amazed at the significance of what we're facing with that future production shortfall and the changes in the industry. I mean, it's kind of one of those things we don't want to sit there and dwell on all of the problems. And so this is a really great solution space.
Yeah.
It was really cool to kind of unpack that.
She was talking about breeding plants, getting them together. And I was wondering...
Sweet hybrid babies.
It's making sweet hybrid babies. I was wondering if you could... Oh, there you go. Gets a little funky in here with that one now. And I was wondering, do they ever use music to, set the mood between these plants when they're getting them together, get a bit of Marvin Gaye in there. I've been really trying, coffee plant, trying to hold on for so long. Let's get it on.
I think they should try that. I think coffee cherries would ripen much more rapidly if they had little Rowan like
right
singing
next to them.
I mean, that's a well-common, known fact, music and plants. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I actually have heard some studies doing that.
Oh, I've heard it with like cows for like dairy. Like they'll play is it like orchestral, like classical music to cows and it like increases their production levels?
Super
or
relaxed.
Yeah. I mean, what a life living that as a cow. But
What stood out to you from what Hannah took us through? Because it was a fairly technical kind of general area, but was there anything that was of particular interest or surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess how little we know, how like kind of small it is in what we look at when we're looking at the coffee industry, but how many opportunities there for different, is it varietals? Am I using the right terminology on that? Or where does it come down to?
This didn't quite answer my question there because I think we've kind of butchered it, but
can you break that down for us now? So what is this? This is like...
Oh, I don't know if I'll do it right. I don't know if I'm right with this. But so we use these words, right, as we look at things on the coffee menu, whether it's Bourbon or Typica, right? And these varieties of the Arabica species, which is from the café family. So it's café, Arabica, Bourbon would be kind of the sequence there.
Yep.
And, we use varietals and cultivars. Kind of, I think they all get used a bit interchangeably. And I wanted Hannah to tell me which one's right and which one's wrong. Maybe someone can comment and message us.
Well, she kind of said it was just different, like almost culturally or context-wise and that. Because I always just like throw out like varietal. I don't know. I'm just like, the varietal.
I've always kind of thought of that cultivar is something that is like a cultivated plant.
Okay.
So it's something that was created by kind of man-made intervention where we've kind of crossbred or intentionally brought that about. Whereas like a variety might be just something that's naturally occurring or like a natural mutation.
Well, it's probably one of those annoying one where it's like all cultivars are a variety, but all varieties aren't a cultivar.
I think we can do a very sneaky little hot take in this one.
Hit me.
Is that heirloom is not a variety. Okay, heirloom, you'll see it listed on a whole heap of coffee bags, especially coming out of Ethiopia. And, Ethiopia was the home of, it's the birthplace of Arabica coffee. And they've got, numerous trees that have not been fully documented, and the genetic diversity is really broad. And often the coffee plots are this huge mixture of different varieties. I'm just going to use the word variety. The different varieties out there that have not been kind of selected. And so they kind of do this catch-all, like it's heirloom varietals, it's heirloom varieties, which just basically means it's a field mix. It's a whole hodgepodge of lots of different varieties all in one plot, right? But I think a lot of the times I see people say, oh yeah, it's an heirloom variety. And it's like, well, that doesn't actually mean anything. That just means it's old. It's like saying it's an heirloom tomato variety. It's like, what variety is it? There are different types.
Yeah, well, the birthplace of coffee being Ethiopia. What's the age-old story? Coffee was discovered by Ethiopian farmers whose goats ate the leaves of coffee.
Caldich farmer, the goat herder.
And the goats started going absolutely bonkers. Now we're like, we better get on this.
I'll have a bit of that.
That looks great.
Well, yeah. And I mean, Hannah was saying like coffee's only really been 400 years or so that it's been intentionally farmed.
Yeah.
And that was kind of something that stood out for me, was that, okay, it makes sense why we're so far behind in terms of the plant technology or growing and different varieties, is because coffee's only been farmed for a few hundred years versus these other crops that have been around for tens of thousands of years like corn, but also that it's very easy to just replant a coffee seed and grow another tree. And then also that tree will last a long time, right? Like corn, you think about it, it's a crop. It happens once a year and it ripens and you harvest it. And it's like once a year turnover cycle. You can plant something different and get a whole new thing. So you can imagine the turnaround for trying new varieties would be really fast. But for a coffee tree, you plant it and there's a tree there for another 30 years. Why would you change it? So that inertia for kind of new varieties is probably a bit different.
And something else that we talked about that kind of stems off this, though, that's something that's come up a few times, is this idea that coffee is going to struggle because all the young farmers or all the children of the farmers don't want to take on the business because it's not profitable enough. It's been arduous and the parents have struggled doing it. And it feels like that beyond everything is such a huge problem if there are just people that don't want to produce it. I was like, it feels like one of those episodes we were talking about, like our debate episodes that we'll get into once we're back from host.
Yes.
You almost want to do like open table episodes where it's like you just place out, get like 3 extremely knowledgeable people from different fields of coffee, put out like a problem and be like, what are some different ways that we could approach this from 3 different perspectives of the market? Yep. I mean, she also broke it down pretty succinctly when we talked about it. And it's like, it comes down to money. And the only 2 ways to solve it, charging more for the beans or growing more beans, which the growing more beans side feels like this kind of research could lend into that world of being more secure in what you're growing and buying. But you've also got to get the land. Like there's so many things that are difficult.
It's a super complex topic because growing more has like, okay, what is the yield? So how much coffee cherry does a particular coffee tree produce? And increasing the yield per tree, which is based on the variety and the growing conditions and fertilizer inputs. But then there's also like, they often talk about it as the yield per hectare, or like what is the productivity of that entire kind of plot of land. So often you can't get more land, right? You can't go out and just buy more or get more. So it's like, okay, if I have 1 hectare, I'm a smallholder coffee farmer, I have 1 hectare, how much coffee can I yield out of that whole plot? And that comes down to variety, but how close together you can plant coffee trees and how old they are. I've been to some farms in Burundi where they do have those 20, 30-year-old, often Bourbon varieties. So great, nice variety, but they're so old, they're really tall and spindly, and the productivity of them is just really low. So, but to replant, you've got to cut that tree down or graft something on. It'll be like a year before you get more cherries back out. That's like, what do you do for income?
Yeah. You just wait around for a couple of years. I know in the wine industry, like you look at that, it's such an investment when you start grafting and doing all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, it's going to be X amount of time before we're actually producing. And then sometimes you get to that point of production and then you have a crazy downfall of rain. You're like, well, this is that, lot gone and the harvest is 1/3 of what we expected. So you can cut our profits for the year by 1/3, and it's a lot of investment. It's a lot to take on just as a farmer. Another thing that we talked about, a little touch on, is the Australian trials that they were doing. And like you've been part of the sensory side of this.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, why is Australia even trying to grow coffee? Like it doesn't feel like it's the best environment. Our labor costs are going to be way too high to make it profitable. Why are we even doing it?
Well, I think there is actually a potential for bigger industry of it than there is now. There's actually some great quality coffee that's out there, but it's kind of in that, even though coffee in Australia has been around, certainly in its current form since the 80s, it hasn't really kind of taken off in the current market in quite the same way. There's been a lot of hobby farms or vertically integrated smaller plots, right, where people are growing, processing, roasting and selling the roasted coffee. But there's starting to be this move towards larger farming scapes, especially in far northern Australia, in northern Queensland, where it's very tropical. And I think that the reason that the trial plot is here in Australia, it's pretty interesting, is that it's a very similar environmental conditions as some parts of Brazil.
Yeah.
So we've got much lower altitude, but coffee growing to be successful needs to have hot, warm days and cool nights. Right. And typically that's between those tropics of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer, right? Close to the equator, and then high altitude. If you're low down near the equator, it's really hot all the time. Like at night, it's hot. And so the plants are continuing to burn up their energy at night, and you kind of don't have a good growing condition. So you go up the mountain. You go up the mountain at the equator or close to the equator, and it gets hot, sunny during the day, but cool at nights. And that extends the growing and you get a better quality. In Australia, we don't have the altitude, but because we're further away from the equator, we get a similar temperature kind of environment. So,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
So, but how can we produce it affordably?
In Australia?
Yeah.
I think it's yet to be proven whether we can do it at scale, but there's actually quite a bit of investment going into developing that and researching that now. And there's a notable larger scale producer in Australia called Jack Murat. They've got about 60 hectares under coffee and are planting more out. And it's very similar model as Brazil. So large scale plantations, machine harvesting, a lot of automation and getting up to that volume side of things, but with a lot of equipment. So hopefully there's a price to quality kind of ratio that comes out there.
Yeah, because I know California coffee is like in a similar thing where it's like trying to figure out where the market is, because it's cool that they grow it and have it, but then they're like, how many people are going to pay like $100 for a bag of coffee because our labor costs are so high? They're looking at like different ways of like treating it more like a winery experience where it's like you can go visit the farm, sit at the trees, get a coffee there, have it like that, and maybe grab a bag when you leave. But just from a like buying it in a supermarket or a cafe, it feels like a big barrier to entry.
Yeah, look, there's definitely challenges there, but I think it's an interesting thing. There's lots of benefits as well if you talk about cost of transportation and food miles and different directions like that. Australia is kind of unique in that we also don't have many of the pests and diseases that other countries do. So there isn't coffee leaf rust, there isn't coffee berry borer in Australia, which basically means that the farmers don't need to use a lot of the herbicides and pesticides that other countries might to control those.
Yeah.
So we've kind of got there's some different kind of attributes that might be of value to segments of the market. If you want organic farming and, you want low food miles, it's great. We can have some options there.
Well, about coffee luwak, where it's like the little rodent or whatever it is, like eats the coffee, poops it out, and it ferments in the poo, and then you make that coffee and it costs a fortune. What I'm thinking is kangaroo poo coffee from Australia. This coffee will give you the hops.
Oh no, hopped coffee.
Yeah,
Hopped coffee.
the little Skippy blend.
Kangabrewed.
Kangaroo. Kangaroo.
We're just coming up with the gold here.
Would you buy kangaroo coffee?
Someone will make it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Kangapooed.
Kangapoo.
Yeah.
Kangapoo for your kangaroo. Okay, well, I'm going to do one of them. Which one am I doing? Am I doing the Vegemite co-ferment coffee or am I doing Kangapoo?
Yeah, I think the Vegemite co-ferment. Yeah, that one will.
Yeah.
Be. That's more of a goal. Well, it could be quite salty.
Hell yeah, savory coffee, baby.
Savory coffee.
Bring that umami to the plate or the cup.
But yeah, look, the Australian IML TV, is that what it is? The International Multi-Location Trial. Thank you. VT.
I say TV because we're so used to just saying TV.
Yeah, just TV.
Wait, you really have that down pat.
Yeah, thanks. I've said it a few times. International Multi-Location Varietal Trial.
Umalavatid. Or as we call it, umalavatid.
Yeah.
I've actually visited the one in Australia. And
you were like a little sensory nerd for it, right?
Yeah, I was a sensory nerd. They kind of said, okay, we've measured all of the growing stuff. Now we need someone to taste it. Oh, we'll call Ben.
Yeah.
So we got a panel of Q graders across multiple cities. I've actually done 3 seasons of the harvest doing this, and we kind of did a blind, basically sensory assessment, scored it, gave all of the descriptives back. And
we can't ask you, can we?
What?
Good.
It was amazing. I was actually like really surprised in a good way. And maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but it was really fascinating because it went like one trial plot, one very specific location. Here's 10 different varieties of the coffee tree growing in that one location. Like, and then you suddenly start to taste like, oh, this is what could happen in Australia if the right varieties were available. And some of them now are available. And so there was like Panama and Marseillaise, some of these varieties that are more well-known in Central America, but growing here, they're actually great for growing their dwarf varieties. And so they're like shorter, which is good for machine harvesting, but they tasted great. The context of this is that we were cupping samples from trees that are maybe like 4 years old, so pretty early into their production. And there's like 10 trees in this whole plot of one variety. So there's, 500 grams. There's a kilo of green coffee coming out of this total.
Yeah.
Right. And so the processing is really difficult, to get a consistent like washed process out of such a small quantity is kind of a bit difficult. And despite all of that, some of these coffees were cupping and scoring like 85, 86 points. And it really, really tasty stuff.
But this is why coffee just in general needs to be appreciated more.
Yes.
When you think about that kilo bag of coffee that you have at your cafe or at home, that 1 kilo is pretty much an entire tree's production. So when you have a kilo of beans, that's an entire tree that you're getting that's been picked, that's been depulped, washed, fermented, roasted, shipped across the world.
Yep.
It's wild to think. And, when you throw out some beans or a bad shot and you just toss it in the bin, it's like, that's a tree working its butt off to get you that coffee.
And if you've ever had the opportunity to go to a coffee farm and actually pick cherries, Australia is a little unique because the plot is only, at a slight angle. But like I've been on farms that, the 45-degree mountainside in the Andes, and you're picking cherries, trying to balance on this slope, and then you end up with so little coffee. The amount of effort just to pick the cherries, let alone to grow it and tend it.
Now,
mind blowing.
Hannah was very positive with like everything. She was not about like the bleak world of like where coffee is going downhill. It was more about the innovation and the change. So to take a positive spin on things, climate change is meaning that 50% of the land that could grow coffee won't be able to grow coffee by 2050.
Yep.
Positive spin question. Will there be new pieces of land that will be able to grow coffee with climate change?
Yeah, I believe so.
Really?
I think that, again, when we talk about those good growing conditions of coffee, that areas that might have been too cold or had frost in particular, starting to warm up in general.
Yes, they're still not so good, but we can still grow coffee there.
Not so great, but maybe allow for room for certain farms to kind of move into those areas. Unfortunately, it's probably, I'm kind of throwing a little dark cloud over your
my positivity.
But unfortunately, It's probably not the case for most of the existing coffee producing countries. If you talk about Central and South America, the only place that will continue to have the good temperature ranges are higher up the mountain. And there's only so much land higher up the mountain you can go, right? To more temperature. Man-made mountains. Just build some mountains.
Take our trash. And instead of putting it in a dump, let's create trash mountains.
This is why this guy gets the big bucks. The brilliant ideas.
Would you not buy a coffee that was called Trash Mountain?
Trash Mountain coffee.
Don't look at me when you ask that. The answer is yes.
Wouldn't you?
The answer is yes.
But look, there could be some good options out there, and hopefully that allows for people to transition their business.
So one of the things we talked with Hannah about on the episode was geisha, and we spoke about Panama geisha. You had a little bit of news about it.
Yes. So everyone's been following along. The Best of Panama sold for a record-breaking 30,000 US a kilo. It was a lot. It was crazy expensive. And the buyer of it from Dubai has actually started releasing it for sale by the cup.
They're selling, how much is it?
It is $628 US a cup.
Oh, 628. I guessed around 1,000 Australian. So that's pretty close.
You called it.
Oh my God, 600. Would you pay $628 for a cup of coffee?
No.
Yes.
You would?
No. I'm saying yes to your no.
Yes to the no.
Absolutely not, because there's nothing that dramatically like that's going to be amazing about it. It's just the scarcity thing and like doing that. You could get coffees that are going to impress you just as much for way less money.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I have no problem that that's out there in the world. I think we talked about it when these news dropped that, you know, this idea of like luxury coffee, yes, it's exclusive and it's not going to be for everyone. But in terms of the ecosystem of coffee progressing and maturing, I think having those luxury things in there gives a little bit of a lift to the whole of industry to say this is the potential value and worth here. And so like, hey, let's not complain about our cup going to $7 instead of $4.
And does it have positive like going across to other farmers of like seeing like what can happen with, you know, the increased desirability of your coffee and that kind of thing? Yeah, 600. I mean, hopefully maybe we can use our powers as coffee podcast for evil and try to get someone to give us a cup of this damn coffee.
Want to sponsor a little cup of coffee for us?
Well, did you say it's in Dubai?
It's in Dubai, World of Coffee Dubai next year.
Well,
I think we might be
guess
there.
Who's going to be going to World of Coffee Dubai? These legends. So let's manipulate our way in to get ourselves an expensive cup of coffee.
Expensive cup of coffee. We'll see if it's worth it. I mean, it's interesting. They're brewing it as a V60 and the news articles are saying, and it's done with a temperature-controlled kettle. Like, thank you. And a paper filter. They actually, one of the news articles said it has temperature-controlled water and a paper filter.
Clearly not written by someone that knows anything about coffee. They just know that it's expensive. So it's like the age being like, yes, they're actually brewing it with water to make it extra tasty.
Filtered.
Filtered.
Oh.
Fancy.
Is it mineralized?
Probably in Dubai, it's desalination water.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, I think it's kind of interesting. It's good. You know, it's out there and we'll see what the response is. I wonder what people who buy it are thinking and experiencing.
Absolutely. And Ben, I'm just going to have to stop you right there because I've got something coming in my headphones. It's our reporter in the field, Ollie from Condesa Collab with our market report.
Oh my gosh.
It's the 15th of October, 2025. Good morning, Ben and Rowan. Always a pleasure. This morning, we find the market at 399.65. This is despite the fact that we actually got really positive rains in the key growing regions of Brazil on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This was supported by good rains in Central America, and the rains in Colombia have stopped, which is really positive for the Colombian coffee season. All coffee producing regions now have normal moisture levels, which usually supports the market going down. However, that's not the case. The Brazil and US tariffs are still in place, which is supporting further use and drawdown of the ICE stocks in the US. And those stock levels are now at 509,000 bags, which is another bullish factor for coffee prices. On top of this, Trump has indicated on Truth Social that he could now impose tariffs on China, which has caused the knock-on effect of seeing the Aussie dollar limping along against the US dollar, which is responding to global developments. The AUD is at now 0.649 against the US dollar, which means your micro lots and flat price coffees are going to look more expensive today, but could still represent value for money when compared to differentially priced blend components. My advice, of course, is to remain flexible in your coffee program, look for opportunities, and continue to take risk off the table. And that's it from me. Back to you guys, and of course, it's just coffee. All the best.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god!
Really?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh! Well, what a great episode. I think that brings us to the end of the coffee break. As always, where can they reach us, Benny boy?
They can reach us via email at hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com.
Yeah.
And on the socials, feel free to add us, mention us, DM, drop any comments in on our socials, and yeah, definitely let us know if you've got ideas for topics you'd like us to tackle on the podcast, or any particular guests who you're excited about and you'd like to hear more from them. We're here for you.
Yeah. And just remember, plants can have sex too.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful hybrid babies. You know that they have what's called hybrid vigor.
Oh, hybrid vigor. Now we're talking. They really get down to it.
That's right. The babies from that kind of. I think we might need to take this off air as we continue to talk about.
Plants getting it on. Talking about plants getting it on.
Vigor.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Coffee Break.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a quick word from one of our sponsors, Apex Lab. Elevate your coffee experience with Apex Lab mineral concentrates. Apex Lab's precision-engineered formulas, including tonic, jam, and lilac, are designed to enhance the coffee's natural flavors. Not going to change it, it's just going to enhance it. It's going to bring out the vibrant acidity, the rich sweetness, or if you use lilac, it might bring out those delicate floral notes that you've been looking for. Trusted by world-class cafes and even barista champions, Apex Lab helps you unlock your coffee's full potential. Discover more at apexlab.com. Wait, where was that again, Sonam?
The internet.
Oh, okay. Thought he was going to say the website. Thanks. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors at Eco Barista. The reason I sound like this is because they got massages at our stand at Mice, and so I'm getting a massage while recording this message for you. They're the best sponsor of the pod that we could have had. They have the best eco products. This probably sounds really pornographic, but it's not. I'm just getting a massage. They have the best eco-friendly coffee products. They got coffee bags that you can design yourself. They got cups. They got iced coffee cups. They got everything you need. So make sure to support them because they support us. Head to ecobarista.com.au and get 15% off your first purchase when you sign up. Oh, mama, that's good.